Hey, thanks for dropping by and checking out this message. These lessons come from our Sunday gatherings at Victory Christian Church in Franklin, Indiana. Our 5th through 8th graders meet at 9 or 10:30 a.m. and our high schoolers meet from 6 to 8 p.m. If you find that this content brings value to your life, then please consider subscribing and hitting that bell so that you can be notified when we upload our next message. Our hope is that this video brings more clarity into your life as to who God is and what He wants for you in light of who Jesus is and what He's done for you. Enjoy and have a great day.
What is your all-time favorite song? Favorite song of all time right now? Let's see if this works. Okay, well right now I'm really into this song, and this is probably going to be an unpopular opinion, but we will see. No. Okay, does anybody know that song? Okay, good. At least it's relevant. Probably, maybe unpopular opinion. I don't know. I think it's a really well-written song, and the story behind it's kind of cool. So, I think it's a pretty good song right now. So, our favorite food from McDonald's are the song that we just can't get enough of. They're fun things to talk about with your friends, right? And it's easy to have those conversations. It's not like, oh, there's so much baggage with, oh, this is my favorite song, or I really want this for lunch. And then there are other times like we experience something, or we watch a TV show or our favorite movie, or we go to a concert and we just can't wait to tell somebody about it, right? Like, this is a player's guide for a Dungeons and Dragons game that I play, and it's Eberron Rising from the Last War. I was very excited when they released this book, because the characters and mechanics that are in this book are my favorite all-time setting for D&D. If you didn't know, here's a spoiler alert, I am a nerd. But I was very excited for this book to come out. It came out on November 22nd last year, right before Christmas, and that's all I wanted for Christmas. Yes, I'm a 35-year-old man. I wanted a game book for Christmas. That's all I wanted. That's all I talked about, and it got really bad with my wife, because that's all I wanted to talk about. I was very excited for this game to be coming out. It was an experience for me, because when I first started playing D&D back when I was in college, that was the newest setting, and so I had a lot of emotional connection to it. I had a lot of intellectual connection to it, because I love, my favorite part of D&D is adding. It's math the game, and I love it, because again, nerd. Thank you, Lincoln. I'm glad I have your support. But chances are you've experienced something like that, right? Probably that book doesn't get you as excited as it did me, but you've seen a movie, or you went to a concert. Maybe it was the Justin Bieber concert where he debuted that song. I don't know. I did not go to that concert. I've never been to a Justin Bieber concert. That's listening on the radio is as far as I take that. But we've all had those experiences, right? Talking about your favorite movie, or a really cool concert, or making a game-winning play. These are all things that we want to share with our friends, and they're really easy to share with our friends. But do we feel the same way about sharing our faith? When it comes to sharing our faith, do we get excited? Do we we can't wait to tell people about it, right? Is that the truth? Do we feel the same way when it comes to sharing our faith? And for most of us, we'd probably say, if we're being honest, probably not. And there's a few reasons for that. And I think that talking about Jesus can be awkward, right? Like you think about it, talking about Jesus, it can be awkward. If we're following Jesus, it can be uncomfortable to bring it up to other people. We don't know what to say or how to say it. We don't want to make other people feel uncomfortable, so we just don't bring it up. Some of us don't share our faith because we think it means being confrontational. Like the only way to talk about Christianity and Jesus is we think that it means defending God, standing up for the Bible really loud, and sometimes even annoying ways. Talking about following Jesus can feel like a big conflict or a confrontation. So that's just, we don't want to get into that. Like we know it's going to be a fight, so we don't want to get into a fight. Why would we purposely seek out confrontation when it comes to our faith? Or maybe we think, before we even open our mouths, before we even start talking, we think, okay, we have to have all the answers lined up. I have to know every question they're going to ask because they're going to ask all these questions. I'm not going to be able to answer them, so I'm just not even going to bring it up. I'm not going to talk about it. Like, I'm not even going to share the story. Like, I'm not going to worry about it because I don't have all the answers. They're going to ask a bunch of questions. And I don't want to get into that, right? Maybe we're just nervous because we're not sure about it ourselves. How can we tell someone else about how great or amazing it is to follow Jesus when every day isn't sunshine and rainbows just because we follow Jesus? So it's like that goes back to that we don't have all the answers. It's like, why do bad things happen? I don't know. They're going to ask me that, so I'm not going to talk about it. But here's the thing. Following Jesus is amazing. It is awesome. It is so cool, and it's one of the greatest things we can do, right? When you make the decision to live your life following Him is exciting, and it's a big deal, and it's one that you have to share with other people. So, silently ask yourself, right? Okay, this isn't turn to your partner or your other partner. Like, just think to yourself for a minute, okay? How do I share what following Jesus has done for me in a way that isn't awkward or confrontational or nerve-wracking or arrogant? You guys think about it? Okay, so these are hard questions, right? And you're not going to have all the answers to those questions. I think it starts by looking at Jesus. Look at the one we're following. We've spent this is the third week we're in the Follow series, and we've talked about what it looks like, who you're supposed to follow, why you follow. But so look to Jesus for how you follow. Luckily, there's a few places in Scripture where it talks about the people that followed Jesus and how they went about doing that. How they went about sharing their faith with the people around them. The books of the Bible, known as the New Testament, are divided, Old Testament, New Testament. The first four books of the New Testament are the Gospels, right? Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. Those are the Gospels. Those are the stories, the narrative that is explicitly about Jesus while he was on earth. And then a little bit there at the end about how he was put on the cross and then he rose again. So he's still on earth at this point in the story, right? That's what the Gospels talk about, is him living his life, dying on the cross, being resurrected, and then ascending to heaven. So we can really look at, it's really good to look at those books for what Jesus actually had to say when people were like, okay, what do we do, right? When the disciples who dedicated their lives to following Jesus encountered Jesus, their lives were changed. And like we do with any life-changing experience, they wanted to share that. What Jesus told them to, that's actually what Jesus told them to do, was just go and tell people, right? Take a look, just a few examples of how they actually did it. So in the book of Luke, in chapter 7, verse 22, it says, Then he told John's disciples, "Go back to John and tell him what you have seen and heard." And I want to give a little context to this one. This is Jesus after he's risen from the dead. This is John's disciples seeing Jesus on the road after he's supposed to be dead and gone. So these people, they see Jesus and they're like, "Oh, it's Jesus. What do we do?" And he says, "Go to John and tell him what you have seen and heard. Make sure he knows that I'm back." And then in the book of John, it goes on, it says, "Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, was one of the men who heard what John said and then followed Jesus." So Andrew turned his life over because of what John had told him about Jesus. A couple verses later, in verse 43, it says, "The next day, Jesus decided to go to Galilee. He found Philip and said to him, 'Come, follow me.'" So those seem like really short, simple statements, right? Tell him what you have seen and heard. That he followed Jesus after hearing him. And Jesus just explicitly says, "Follow me." These seem like pretty simple statements, right? And it's because they are. That's how Jesus spoke to us. That's how Jesus instructed us. The way Jesus calls us to share him with others is actually just that simple. It's about sharing what we've seen and heard. It's about telling others what we've experienced while following him. It really is that simple. It's what have you seen? What have you heard? What is your experience? No weirdness, no memorization, no awkward questions, no judgment. Just what have you seen? What have you heard? What have you experienced? What is your life story with Jesus? Share that. That's what it means to follow Jesus. So turn right now to someone next to you and tell them about your favorite TV show to binge watch. Okay, so that was easy, right? That was easy. You knew exactly what show to talk about. You knew what you loved about that show. Well, talking about Jesus is the exact same thing. We share how the experience with Jesus has made us feel. We share the changes that it's brought to our lives. Following Jesus means sharing him with others. And how we choose to follow Jesus and how we choose to share Jesus, it may look a little different for everybody. Everybody's experience is different. Everybody has different things happen in their lives. But at the core of it, following Jesus means sharing him with others. And there's two pretty universal truths when it comes to that. Following Jesus means you share Jesus with others through the way that you act. You care about the people around you. You care about the people that can give you absolutely nothing in return. You care about the downtrodden. You care about, just for the simple fact that they exist, you care about them. And you approach them with that empathy. You approach them with that caring. And that's how people know you follow Jesus without you ever having to say a word to them. And then you share Jesus with others through the words that you say. Talk about what Jesus has done for you. How have you experienced God in your life? How have you experienced Jesus in your life? What has Jesus meant? What has it meant to you to follow Jesus? What has changed in your life because of the decision that you made? You may not know all the answers in the Bible. You're not going to memorize the Bible back to front. I mean, some of us do. I have not. But you don't have to know every verse, every chapter. You don't have to know every answer to every question that somebody's going to have to share Jesus. And that's the Great Commission, right? It's go forth among all the nations and share and make disciples of all the nations, right? It's pretty, when you get down to it, it's pretty easy to know what are we supposed to do when we're following Jesus. We're supposed to share his story with the whole world. So just imagine for a second if everybody that says they were a Jesus follower acted in the way that we're talking about today. If everybody talked in the way that we're talking today. How would that change the narrative? How would that change the way that people look at Christians? How would that change the way you look at yourself? If you just looked at it as, you know what, my only goal, my only job to show people that I follow Christ is to tell them about Christ, tell them about Jesus, and act in a way that Jesus acted, emulate Jesus. Be kind to the stranger, help the downtrodden, don't judge people for their pasts. These are all things that Jesus did, and these are all things that we emulate. By the way we act and the way we speak, people will know us as Jesus followers. So, as we head into small group, just think about, of all the things we've talked about, what is one thing that makes me nervous about sharing my faith with others? What is one thing that's stopping me from just sharing my faith with my friends, with my family, with the people around me who I see every day that maybe need to hear that story, but what's one thing that's stopping me, that's making me really nervous about sharing that faith? May I close in a word of prayer, and we will break off into our small groups.
Hey, hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up and make sure you're subscribed so you're notified when we upload future videos. Have a great day.